LED, why do you look so good? This is beautiful. I always love looking at an OLED because, well, obviously I want to play a lot of games on this thing because that's what you should be doing with an OLED. You should be playing games and watching media. But this one has a very good implementation of HDR, which is something I haven't seen that much, especially in this price range. And it's got amazing color. The stand is also quite nice. What we're going to do here is just, kind of hang out, play some games. I want to talk about what this is. If you don't know who KTC is, well, I'm going to tell you who KTC is because I've now used like 4 of their monitors. They OEM for a lot of the major companies that you've probably purchased. So you may have some KTC technology or something in some of the monitors that you've purchased over the years from different companies. So they haven't really been selling directly to the customer, but they have recently started doing that. Now we can get directly from them at a better price. This one has a lot of their technology, but it features a very high quality LG OLED panel. Let's take a look at this beautiful monitor. It's the G27P6S. Have you ever used an OLED? And what did you think about that versus a regular monitor? And did it ruin things for you like it has for me? Let's first off go through just the basic specs. 27 inches, 240 hertz. And when we're talking about an OLED, 240 hertz looks really smooth because you don't have as much ghosting. And I am going to do a full-on test and we'll see how the ghosting is on this. We also have a 0.03 second response time, that's the graded gray, and a 1.5 million to 1 contrast ratio. OLED is ridiculously beautiful. One thing that you have to take into account when you're looking at your different pixel densities out there is like, yeah, you can get 4K, but at 27 inches, you're not going to notice the difference between 1440p and 4K if you're sitting 2.5 feet away. If you're like leaning into your screen like a weirdo, then yeah, you might see some of the pixels and the fonts might not be perfectly smooth around the edges, but if you're like sitting back comfortably in your chair, it's going to look perfect. So there's no reason to get 4K in my opinion. Plus you'll have to turn on resolution scaling, so 1440p is perfect at 27 inches. I would never use a 4K at this size, plus it's much harder to drive. You'll have to have a more expensive graphics card, so spend the money on your monitor, not your graphics card. That's my little tip right there. On the back of the monitor, we have a very elegant and clean, simple logo. I kind of like the aesthetics of this, but it's completely subjective. The logo does have RGB, and you can turn that on and off. In the menu, you can let it breathe, or you can just put it on a solid color and just let that kind of glow in the background. I like it. Kind of lights up the wall a little bit. Let's go through all the ports here on the back, and we have a lot of them. So let's just start from the left. That is a headphone jack right there. You have two HDMI 2.1 that'll support the full 240 hertz at 1440p. We have a full-size display port 1.4, and that'll support the full 1440p, 240 hertz. Then we have Type-C, which will also support that. This is power delivery 3, so this will do 65 watt power. Then over here, this is more than just USB. So this is a KVM. Then we have a 75 by 75 millimeter Visa stand. It's got a very nice quick release on the back, just snaps into place. And then we have all kinds of adjustments. It can fully rotate 90 degrees. If you want to do portrait or landscape, you can do it either way you want. We have tilt of 5 to 20, swivel of 15 degrees, and a pivot of 90 degrees. And you have about 110 when it comes to, moving it up and down right there, 110 millimeters. We do have 2 speakers as well. They're monitor speakers, so I would think if you're going to be gaming, you're not going to be using those, but you got them. All right, who's this for? It's an OLED. I know what I'm going to be playing on this brand new gaming monitor. Extremely old games. Classic console games look amazing on an OLED. So if you're a retro gamer, you just turn on some CRT filters and it feels almost as good as playing on a CRT. The motion's still, in my opinion, slightly better on CRT, but the look and the feel, there's also plenty of filters made specifically for OLED monitors. Turn on the CRT filters and it's kind of like throwing the nostalgia switch. It does feel a lot like a CRT. Here's a CRT for comparison. Different CRTs had different looks, and with an OLED, especially one that's 1440p, the higher resolutions, the better the CRT filters. I just think it looks amazing. So I think you'll find that, if you want to play a lot of the old games, you can get an OLED like this, turn on the CRT filters, and it really does feel a lot like it used to feel. When it comes to OLED, I don't recommend them for like office work or whatever because they do have the burn-in and you've got to do the OLED screen care and everything. But if you're doing stuff like gaming and media, there's nothing better. Like it will ruin you. When you look at OLED, it's so difficult to go to anything else. Let's talk about a few of the gaming features that we have now. We have Freesync. also compatible with Gsync, so you can match it up and sync it to the refresh rate of your monitor. And then we do have some different modes here when it comes to like low latency and everything. I've been using the low latency mode. We have a few different modes that you can turn on, like first person shooter mode and RTS mode. And also in the menu, we do have some reticles and stuff you can put on the screen if you want to like just have a reticle that's always right in the middle of the screen, regardless of the game. All right, so when it comes to the gamuts, we have 100% of the DCI P3 gamut, 136% of the sRGB color gamut. It's got all the colors. It's 10-bit. So as far as the HDR goes, to me it was nice and bright HDR 10. I thought it looked, OLEDs just look so good, even without HDR or whatever, but I did play these games in HDR whenever it supported it. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell if you're not using an HDR screen, but it looks good. All right, let's open up these pictures right here. I want to see what the ghosting looks like. I haven't seen this myself, so we're going to go through it together. And whenever I want to mess around with ghosting, I always play Dusk because it's a blocky game, you know, like retro FPS, and you can really see the edges of things, and there's a lot of like bright colors and a lot of dark colors that contrast one another. So when you're moving around, that's where you're going to notice ghosting the most, is when you're moving from a really bright pixel to a really dark pixel and you're moving fast. So we're going to go through and take a look at Dusk here and just see what we see. And I'm moving around as much as I can. See a tiny bit right there, but when you compare this to like IPS and AHVA, you would see 10 different shadows behind him. This is pretty good for going from dark to light. Right here, look at this frame. I'm moving, but yeah, I don't see, like, I see, look, that's perfect crisp edge. That's wild to see. That is wild to see. Yeah, this motion is so smooth. A little bit of a trail right there as they're moving. I'm swinging my camera back and forth wildly, just trying to produce a ghost image behind them. I want to note that the ghost images also look correct. And if you're wondering what I mean by that, sometimes I'll see an image that's like ghosting that's a completely different color, like the green, it's like green or something. With this monitor, if there is any ghosting, it's like one tiny little bit, and it's the same color as the character. That makes it look a lot cleaner. This is like an A grade monitor when it comes to ghosting. It's so minimal that it's ridiculous. Right there. You're not gonna notice this much. Amazing monitor when it comes to ghosting. And I know a lot of people are like mad about this flight sim thing, but I wanna talk about flight sim for just a second. I didn't have any trouble playing it. I just ordered a joystick because I can't find my joystick and I'm trying to play this with a mouse and it's not working. But oh my God, this game is beautiful and it looks ridiculous on this monitor. So if you have not played the new flight sim game, yes, it is very good. No, I don't agree with some of the things they're doing with the content streaming and everything, the way it works. I think once they get that figured out, it's going to be one of the best flight sims ever. It looks so good. And once you get it on this monitor, it's like, yeah. There's one thing about OLED you need to think about, and that is, how are you going to use this? Primarily gaming and media consumption? Yes. Yes, 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 it's amazing. If you're going to be doing office work and a bunch of other stuff, I don't know, because you have to worry about burn-in. But there are a lot of things built into the monitor for like OLED care. And sometimes if you leave that stuff on, and it's really aggressive, it'll come on while you're playing a game. I had it a couple times when I was playing Flight Sim when the OLED screen care stuff came on in the middle of like when I'm flying. So what you have to do is reach around to the back of the monitor, tap the joystick, and then it'll wake back up. And then I would be like, oh, you've put your plane in a dangerous situation. It's like, it wasn't my fault. The OLED thing came on. So that happened a couple of times. It might happen to you as well. But you can go in and adjust the settings. And if you're playing a game that you're moving around a lot, you can probably just go in and turn it off. I do worry about games that have interfaces. If you're playing a game that has an interface in one spot for too long, that could be bad. So there's a few different things you have to think about. So the thing for me, and the reason I wanted to look at this, is because you're getting a super high quality LG panel. It's OLED, and I think it's finally at a price point for what it is that I think a lot of people could like consider using it, because I think a lot of the OLED stuff, yeah, it's really awesome, but do you want to spend over $1,000? And then if it's less expensive, you're usually not going to get the 240 hertz. So that's the main thing for me is I'm now familiar with KTC. Kind of went down that rabbit hole a little bit and researched them, found out that they do a lot of OEM stuff. They're using an LG panel on this, so I know that they're quality now. And it's kind of like you got to get familiar, because we've got a bunch of new brands that we're not too familiar with here in the West. And in the next few years, maybe you will be a little bit more familiar with it, and maybe I'll help with that. So anyway, let me know what you think of this KTC G27P6S.